Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Chris Liberto. In 1899, Notre Dame professor Jerome Green led the first long-distance wireless transmission in North America when he sent a wireless message from campus to St. Mary's College, a distance of more than a mile. This year, 2024, the ND Wireless Institute, which was established in 2010, is celebrating 125 years of wireless technology at Notre Dame. Joining us today to tell us more about the anniversary as well as the current work of the Wireless Institute are its co-directors, Professors Nick Laneman and Bert Hochwald. I tell you what, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining us here tonight. And you've got show and tell. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But there's been a lot of talk about this big anniversary that has been going on. You know, Bert, can you talk about kind of that very first experience for me and the transmission and kind of what this means 125 years later, and also what equipment was being used back at that time?
Sure. Well, we have here a sort of a modern replica of what was done back in 1899, but at the time, all they had available to them was sources of electricity. And so what they did is they created a spark. And this is a spark transmitter that we also use. And the idea there was by creating a spark and attaching an antenna to it, you could transmit energy from that spark over a distance. And that was something that was inspired originally by Marconi and his experiments in Europe, and had yet to be replicated here in the U.S. And Jerome Green was one of the first to do it here in the U.S. and transmitting over a distance of over a mile from campus to St. Mary's, and the message that was transmitted was just the letter O in Morse code. And you know, there's a transmitter we have here. There was also a receiver, and the receiver would have been at St. Mary's, and Sister Antonine at St. Mary's was on the receiving side of that message.
Yeah, I've got to imagine just such an exciting area of study, right? And, you know, not a lot of folks know about this big anniversary, but let's talk about the wireless, idea. We think about it, today as more of cell phones and of that nature. But what other technologies are we looking at when we're looking at wireless communications?
So one of the first applications of the time was for, as you can imagine, maritime and Navy, because ships at sea, there was no way to communicate with them. And obviously there was no way to attach wires to them. So wireless was, and still is, of course, a big part of communications out at sea. But clearly, since that time, it's expanded into all sorts of military and commercial applications.
Absolutely.
In addition to that, there's also environmental sensing from satellites. So we measure, land mass, oceans, vegetation. There's positioning, like the GPS system. There's space exploration and radio astronomy. In fact, there's some recent news about getting reconnected to the Voyager spacecraft. Public safety networks. There's just many, many applications of wireless technology and radio spectrum.
Yeah, that's great. Nick, I saw, one of the big projects of the Wireless Institute is Spectrum X. Talk to us a little bit about that, and what is it exactly for those who aren't unfamiliar with Spectrum X?
Sure. So Spectrum X is a center at the national level. It's funded by the National Science Foundation. We have a 5-year, $25 million initial award to build what we call the academic hub in this radio spectrum ecosystem. And not only do we pursue interdisciplinary research, but we also and engage with policymakers that regulate the radio spectrum, but we also pursue education, workforce development, and broadening participation in the field by women and underrepresented minority students.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some of the interdisciplinary programs, right? College of Engineering, this is where the Institute lives, but talk about that really quick, how you partner with other areas of the university.
Since we created the Institute, we always envisioned that Notre Dame could have a pretty strong interdisciplinary voice in this space. We've worked with a lot of folks from the business school, from the law school, policymakers, political scientists, and economists over the years.
Absolutely. And it just speaks to really Notre Dame's mission to make this much more of a broad approach. Now talk about the experience for graduate students in particular and how you're involving them really in what you're doing in the Institute.
Yeah, sure. Grad students, undergrads, grads, there's a role for everybody. We have projects, we have platforms, they all have a wireless component to them, and we need expertise from all across the universe of technical, computer science, engineering, even policy, law, business, you name it. They all play a role in wireless.
And so for the undergraduates who might be watching and listening, how do they get involved in this, and what are some of those specific opportunities that they can take advantage of?
So there are projects such as, you want to say a word about that?
Sure. So this is a custom RF sensor that we built here in the Wireless Institute at Notre Dame. It's intended to be deployed, many of these, over an area to understand what's going on in the radio spectrum. And so these projects involve, this is called the Radio Hound sensor. And it involves hardware, antennas and circuits, software, embedded systems, cloud computing, and data science. So there's many different ways and points of entry that the students can get involved in projects like this with us.
Well, yeah, that's fantastic. And really quick as we wrap up, you know, you mentioned the sign next to you. It's a party favor. Really quickly in a condensed form, you know, what is that? Because I'm looking at a lot of colors and something that I don't understand, but I sure hope you two do.
Well, this goes back to this idea that there are many applications that use wireless technology. This is a chart of the radio spectrum as it's allocated in the United States. And you can see that each little rectangle here is for a different application and a different range of frequencies. That's
great. Well, I'm glad that you understand it. And gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's an exciting time for your world in wireless, and good luck with everything ahead.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.